Greetings, fellow writers. My name is Christianus Matakosis, and it appears that the hour is upon us to hear about this great new series of videos that I have heard of, which is by named of Story Time. What's up, writers? It's your fellow writer Chris Matico, and this is Story Time, episode 6. So, what are we going to be discussing today? Well, we already went over what goes into an actual story, and after you complete those all in your story, we're going to discuss how to revise that. So, without further ado, we're going to talk revisions, and this is the first episode where we're going to be talking about revisions. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is a little thing called subplot. So, in order for me to explain that to you guys, we're going to hit the drawing board. So let's go. Alright guys, so as I said earlier, we are going to talk about subplot. Now, what is subplot? Well, subplot is a little thing that goes into a story. It's like a story within a main story. So, it could go from anything from a love interest to two people contemplating with each other without the main character being there. But even though these things might seem small, they actually have a big impact on your story. Like, let's say we have a love interest that's going on and there's a main thing going on. Either that little love interest is going to affect the story in a good way, and where somehow, whatever way you decide to culminate it, that character will be triumphant, or it could be a hindrance where it's like, all right, I really want to be with this girl, but I really want to accomplish this. So it could either be a subplot, could either be good, or it could be a hindrance to the character, which will actually make it interesting. So right here, I listed out, like, you know, it's the behind the scenes and whatnot, and this is basically a list of what subplots can consist of. It can consist of rivalries. As I said, it could consist of relationships with love interests. As I said before, behind the scenes characteristics. And also you have something that the two characters do, but the main character doesn't witness it. So that can have a major impact on the story if the two characters are focusing on the same thing that the main character is focusing on. So basically, what does subplot do? Well, subplot, as I said earlier, it can do many things, but it does two main things, I think. And one of the main things, as I said earlier, is that it makes the story a lot more interesting. It brings a lot more fluff out in your story, and it actually makes the backstory, you know, whatever happens in there, current events happen. It makes it a lot more interesting, but it also does another thing. It can actually explain why things happen. It could be also another way of reason. You basically can put in subplots to make more sense, to cover plot holes. For instance, if you go somewhere and let's say someone told you something about someone, well, how did that go about? Well, there's a subplot right there when someone, you know, probably found out by discovering it, let's say, through spying on someone. So someone's spying on someone, they report it to someone, and then they report it to you, which leads to another action. That's a subplot. So for this, we're actually going to go back to a previous example we used, Ender's Game, and we're going to look behind the characteristics of Peeta and Valentine. And I almost forgot. If you want to be a career writer when you grow up, subplot will make you a lot of money. It will make you not only a better writer, but it will make you a lot of money. For those who read manga out there, there's a reason why Naruto is such a great series and why it sells out a lot. It's because of subplot. You have the relationships between Naruto and Hinata, Sasuke and Sakura, you know, even what's-his-face, Rock Lee and Sakura even. Those are all little subplots that go into Naruto. And plus you have the rivalries between Sasuke and Naruto, which actually makes the story a lot more interesting. And you have a whole bunch of other subplots that go in there. And that's why Masaki Kishimoto makes a lot of bank when it comes to Naruto. So subplots will make you money. And it's awesome. Alright, so as I said, our example will be Ender's Game again, where we will be examining the subplot between Peter and Valentine. So what's the subplot? Well, the subplot consists of Valentine and Peter. They start publishing articles under these disguised names known as Locke and Demosthenes, or however you would pronounce that. We'll just call her DE from now. DE for now. So, how does this affect the story, you would ask? Well, Colonel Graff actually takes notice of the articles and figures out that DE, who's the really long name, is actually Valentine. So he goes to pick her up from school and actually talks to her into convincing Ender into rejoining his studies within the military, the IF, the International Fleet. So why is this very important? Well, it leads on to the rest of the story. So as you can see, this small subplot leads to a more grander adventure for Ender. Because even though the whole writing of the articles is between Peter and Valentine, it's important that Graff takes notice because that small subplot leads the story on into her convincing Ender that they are going to go continue the story in that sort of sense. So, what does this mean, as I said earlier? By finding who DE is, Colonel Graff gets Ender to join back into his studies by convincing his sister, who is actually DE, to pretty much go to his studies by convincing him to go to battle school. And as I said, her forward, we go on. That's what you have to do with the story. So the main point I'm trying to get to you writers is that subplot is pretty much your best friend. Not only does it make the story interesting, not only does it make it more sense, it'll cover up plot holes that you'll need that will happen in your story, that in case it happens, to send it going forward. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, comment, do whatever. Thank you, writers, and keep on writing.